Can we be honest with each other? Can we say God's promises never to forsake you? Yes, but it doesn't always feel that way. Here are two of the phrases that Jesus uttered on the cross. 1, why have you forsaken me? And 2, Father, into your hands I commend my spirit. How can those two things go together? Even at his death, Jesus showed us how to trust the Father beyond the circumstances. Jesus showed us how to trust the Father beyond the circumstances. Well, Jesus is fully human and fully divine. May I suggest that these two phrases may have been to state that fact. Why have you forsaken me? Seems like a very real human response. And even now, there are Christians in today's society who question, why has God abandoned me, rejected me, deserted me? Yet the Son of God, the Prince of Peace, utters the words, Father, Father, into your hands I commend my spirit. For me, that's a level of trust in God that would make it hard for most humans to speak these words in the given circumstances. However, it demonstrates faith over circumstance. It demonstrates faith over circumstance. The love that Jesus had back then, and indeed now, for his people is mind-blowing. Jesus predicted his death and resurrection. It's one thing to predict the future. It's quite another to go to the cross willingly. At least 3 times, Jesus shared his destiny with the disciples, and they didn't understand. More challenging still is the fact that Jesus embraced this destiny by faith. He knew the Father's promise of resurrection, but death still lay ahead of him. And death was still death, even for Jesus. It was his trust in the Father's promise that caused him to wager everything he had, his very life. As a man, Jesus modelled how to trust the Father. What a great example of faith. Through the events that unfolded, we see that Jesus modelled true obedience to God, so that through this obedience, humanity may be reconciled. For if, while we were God's enemies, Scripture tells us, we were reconciled to him through the death of his Son, how much more, having been reconciled, shall we be saved through his life? Romans 5 verse 7 and 8 tells us, very rarely will anyone die for a righteous person, though for a good person someone might possibly dare to die. But God demonstrates his own love for us in this. While we were still sinners, Christ died for us. How much more? How much more? Greater love has no man than this, that he lay down his life for his friends, it says in John's Gospel. Jesus came to the cross to say, I love you. And he's saying that to us personally, individually, to each one of us today. Yes, Christ came for the world, but he came for us, and we need to turn to Christ and say, I love you too. I love you too.